Hi, so today we're going to look at fire construction and making a bow drill fire using fire by friction. Okay, so I'm going to first of all take you through the different types of tinder and the fire construction. All of this needs to be collected prior to us starting to make tinder wise. We start off with this is just dried grass, and these are dried ferns. So this we'll stuff into the base of the fire, and we'll also put some of this very fluffy material, no more than a third of really fluffy material, right in the middle of our tinder bundle. So here, this is from the reed mace, sometimes called bulrush, and this plant provides some of the best tinder, though we could use thistledown or any other of the possible tinders. Then we move across to this pile here, and this is largely matchstick thick pieces. Then we have pencil thickness, finger thickness, and then larger pieces. Our fire pit has been scooped out. And if we have enough material, we would build an area so that we have some reflection of the heat from behind us. The fire construction starts, I like to have 2 handfuls of the matchstick thin pieces and just set them like so. If it's very damp, I'll keep them dry. I'll light the tinder bundle, and then I'll just place them on the top of the tinder bundle. Or if I need to build a fire and it's very damp, then I'll make a raft to stand the fire on top of. It's not too bad here, so we're going to continue to place our sticks around in a teepee construction. And I've left an opening on the side that you're on there to introduce the tinder and the tinder bundle. So it's that simple to construct our fire. I'm now going to place some tinder in there, and I'm going to keep this part here for my tinder bundle. This is gorse, and this also catches extremely well, so I'm going to put a bit of this in on the top here. The little branches that I've collected, the matchstick thin ones, are birch, which is my preferred choice because the bark is extremely oily and it catches fire and lights even when it's wet. The branches that I've gathered are standing dead wood, so they're dead wood that is hung up in the trees or is still attached to the trees and dead, and that way it's already seasoned and dry. I'm not collecting any of this material from the forest floor, though there's plenty of fallen wood. It will have absorbed moisture. So to start the fire, I'm just going to use standing dead wood. There are quite a range of materials that we can use for the active bow drill parts. We can pretty much use any wood for the bow that fits the right description. For the bow drill parts, we want slow growing softwoods or fast growing hardwoods. That's the principle. With that principle, you can go figure. Just to fill in, so one of the best woods is a fairly slow growing softwood, which is cedar. And that's not the true cedars, but western red cedar, that type of plant. That can be used even when it's green. In the realm of hardwoods, then we're looking at things like sycamore in the maple family. That's one of my absolute favourites. Birch is good, willow is good, but the thing with willow is that you must make sure that it's completely dead because you can cut a branch of willow off, stick it in the ground and it will regrow, which is not what you want. Those characteristics aren't really what you're looking for in the fire making department. Alder is another hardwood that grows where it's very wet. Hazel, and there are many more. The woods that get too hard are things like oak. Beech is on the list, but it's borderline, it's getting quite hard. Hornbeam, I'd say, would make a very good handhold, but wouldn't be great for the other parts. There is a list, and it's the same with the tinders, that we're looking for pretty much any stalky plants that have died in the winter and that are dry enough for us to use. Grasses are fantastic. As I showed you, dead leaves work really well, ferns. It's very much a case of what you have in your environment, but if you know what you're looking for, then that's the main thing. For the fluffy part, then we're looking for reed mace, erroneously known as bulrush, and that's my absolute favourite because of the quantity that you get from each head. Thistledown is good. Rosebay willow herb has a fluffy down, but you must dry that quite well. But anything with that kind of nice light fluffy texture is really what you're looking for. Next we're going to look at the different parts of the bow drill. We have the hearth board. Here you can see lots of holes that have been drilled for fire, and then the spindle section. Now the spindle starts off like this. We're trying to select a piece that is about thumb thickness and about this length. Then we'll sharpen a long taper at one end and a short taper at the other. The long taper is to produce a small amount of friction where we bear down with the handhold. My preference is a rock with a hole in it, but we could quite easily make a hole into a piece of wood that's quite hard and bear down with that onto the top of our spindle. The spindle end that's sharpened starts to shape to the hole, and then for the life of that hole we don't need to sharpen the spindle. Once the hole is used up, then we resharpen the spindle and we start a new hole. This here is the beginning of a new hole. Our bow is also really important. The bow needs to be about as long as the outstretched arm, from armpit to fingertips, and the way that we tie the bow is really quite important. So I have one here. This is a shorter bow, and my preferred knot is a clove hitch, so I make one loop, then another loop, like that, put the first loop underneath the second loop and loop that over the end, and then we end up with a knot like that. I quite like the same knot on the other end. What's really good about this knot is that as you pull down on it, it tightens the knot, and if you want to adjust the tension, you can just pull on the end that's loose like that to adjust the tension, because you need the tension to be exactly right to hold the spindle. So same knot on the other end, and any excess on the handle end so that you can grip it and it doesn't flick about. This is possibly too much on the far end because it can flick into the hole and knock the coal that you're making out. The bow needs to be harvested green. Should have a slight bend in it like this and just about be able to be bent slightly. You don't want it too heavy, and those are the main issues with the bow. With the spindle and hearth board, we want the spindle and hearth board to be about the same thickness this way. And the principle is that we need a harder wood to be pressing down onto a softer wood. So the hearthboard needs to be a bit softer than the spindle. That's the principle. And with that principle, then you can choose any wood combination that you like. Or you can use the same wood. So these are both sycamore, and they're both from the same sort of branch, thin end, fatter end. So we're putting the end grain onto the cross grain. So if you imagine that there are thousands of capillaries that are like little tubes running through the length of the tree. If you take a toilet roll and you try to crush it this way, yes, with the hole like that, try and crush it this way. It's much harder to crush than if you turn it this way and crush it like that. It just crushes instantly. So that means that with all of these tubes running through the wood, the capillaries, we turn this on its end, and then we've got harder bearing down on softer. That's the principle. We can use all kinds of different wood combinations, or if we're using pieces from a branch like this, then we can use the same wood. So if we need to trim the sides of our branch to make a hearthboard, find a log to chop on, make sure that our body is clear of the direction of the axe, and then make a series of little chips all the way down, and then clear it off. Get it nice and flat, and then we turn it round and do the same on the other side. Series of little chips, clear it off. You'll notice that my hand is well out of the way. If I need to chop something down this end, I'm going to turn it over so that my hand is always clear of where I'm chopping. If I need to split something, then I'm going to hold it with a twig and split it here, and I'll most probably place it and then use another log to split it through that way. So if my piece is bigger, then I might need to do that. That hasn't been necessary for this piece. We've got two nice, fairly flat sides, so that we can turn that into a hearthboard. We also want a third square face, if possible, so that becomes the front section. There. Tinder collection, we're looking for standing dead wood. So this branch here that's just caught up in the tree is perfect for small tinder. We've also got this very delicate bark. This is really flammable, and even when it's wet it will ignite. So we want a nice little collection of that as well. Patch of dried ferns which we're going to use and gather to put tinder into the fire. This is just perfect tinder material. It's been dried off by the sun and is great for tinder bundles. It's a bit breaks up a fair bit for tinder bundles, but it's okay, or for stuffing into the fire. So in terms of choice of materials, here we have a section of birch that the squirrels have attacked and eaten the bark off here. So this whole top section is perfect for, so this section here is really perfect for spindles at the top there.